Support for this podcast comes from the law firm of Davis Malm. Whether you're a developer, property owner, manager, or commercial tenant, their real estate attorneys know the lay of the land, not just the law. Learn more at davismalm.com.
WBUR Podcasts, Boston.
I'm Daryl C. Murphy, and you're listening to The Common. WBUR senior business reporter, Zeninjor and Enwemeka. Welcome back to The Common.
Hey, Daryl.
So, Zeninjor, you have some bad news for folks who want to buy a home, I guess, for regular folks. So tell me about how the median home price in Boston is like $900,000, which is an all-time high. Please help me understand this, Zeninjor.
I mean, homes in Greater Boston did just get a lot more expensive. As you mentioned, the median price for a single family home hit an all-time high of $900,000 in May. So just for some context, the previous record was actually set back in June of 2022. And that was when home prices hit over $899,000. So I guess it's sort of been trending in this direction for a while. And just to add to that, I should also note that that big number that we're talking about is for single family homes. But I should also note that condo prices also hit a record high as well. For condos, the median price jumped to over $726,000 last month.
Can you lay out exactly how this affects residents in the city?
Yeah, I mean, when you see the prices hitting, the median prices hitting $900,000, you're hearing these really high numbers. It's just, another sign, or I guess a big sign that homeownership feels more and more out of reach for many people with regular jobs. You're probably looking at what you make, maybe what you have in savings, particularly if you're someone who desires homeownership and feeling like, oh man, I'm never going to be able to own a home with the prices going the way that they're going. You might start thinking about, well, maybe I have to move somewhere else.
Yeah, I was just about to say, how did it get this bad?
Well, the big issue here is the lack of inventory. There just aren't enough houses for the people who want to buy them. So you sort of have this issue where folks who are looking for homes, there's way more buyers. So that increases the competition. That drives up the prices as well because people are competing with each other, trying to make the most attractive offer so that they can get the home. And so that's really what's happening out there. And I talked to the president of the Greater Boston Realtors Association about this. Her name is Allison Sosha. And she said, there's been severe underbuilding in the state. So housing supply is just really an issue.
And that's something that we've been seeing for a number of years in this market. It's that the underbuilding over time. And then when you push that together with the fact that we had an interest rate hike and those folks are just choosing to stay in place rather than make that next move.
And how have interest rates played a part in this?
So interest rates have an impact in terms of housing turnover. So typically, you'd expect some turnover in the housing market. So think about, an aging couple or an empty nester that maybe puts their home up for sale so they can downsize to something else. But, many people who already own homes have benefited greatly from lower mortgage rates than what's available today. So they're less likely to put their homes up for sale. I mean, simply put, for them, financing a new home would actually, in some ways, be more expensive than their current mortgage. Plus, as I've mentioned, there is little inventory to choose from, even if they did want to move. So with, the fierce competition, it's kind of like, why jump back into all that if you're a current homeowner when you can just stay in the home that you already have, which you've locked in at a lower rate than what's available today, and just stay there and ride it out. And so that is leading to less turnover in the market and less of those homes becoming available for newer buyers.
Do these high home prices put extra pressure on our rental market here?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, it's sort of, we're talking about home prices, home buying, but there's sort of this thought in the background of like, oh, what about renters who want to become home buyers? What does this mean for them? And, it does sound like for many people who want to become homeowners, you see the numbers hitting $900,000 on average for a house. And you just feel like, oh, I'm going to be renting forever, and not to say that renting is a bad thing. I'm a renter. Renting definitely
Hey,
makes
I'm a
sense.
renter. Yep.
Exactly. Yeah. Renters unite.
Yep.
But, renting definitely makes sense for a lot of people. But it's interesting because honestly, it's not like renting is cheap either in Boston. I mean,
Listen, some would say, not me, but some would say the rent is too damn high. Some would say that.
It is. I think a lot of people would agree with that. And the competition for rental units is very high. So we're seeing high prices on the rental side of things as well. It just speaks overall to this huge need and huge demand for housing just across the board.
Zeninjor, can you give us a sense of how much it costs to rent in Boston?
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, rents are going up. And actually, recently, the average rent price for apartments in Boston surpassed $3,000 a month.
What?
Yeah. So that is also a milestone that we're seeing on the rental side of the whole, housing market. Extremely, extremely expensive. I mean, at that point, you're basically, paying a mortgage, maybe even more than some
two
mortgages, to be
right?
honest,
For some people.
right? Yeah, it might be two mortgages, and like we talked about, renters, who want to buy a home, they might be stuck with the sort of like two mortgage rent price for a while before they can even get into the, home buying market. So on both sides of it, it is getting more and more expensive to live in the region.
We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back.
Did you kill Marlene Johnson?
I think you're one of the first people to have actually asked.
From WBUR and ZSP Media, this is Beyond All Repair, a new podcast about an unsolved murder that will leave you questioning everything.
Somebody should be in jail for murdering my sister.
A woman who's never been believed.
As long as they think I have done this, then they're not looking for who actually did this.
And that's what makes it a cold case.
No, it's a botched case.
And a search for the truth, once and for all.
Wow, it just gets more interesting.
Beyond All Repair. Listen and follow wherever you get your podcasts.
Be careful. You're digging in a place that's been very peaceful for a while.
Do it anyway. Dig.
And we're back. So, Zeninjor, owning a home can be key to building wealth. So when single-family home prices go up this high, making it tough for a lot of people to afford, folks lose out on that powerful wealth-building tool. And that can be detrimental for a city, for its communities. Is that fair to say?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, from my previous reporting, one of the things I covered and reported on before, and this is, coming from a number of experts, which is that the increasing wealth gap, racial wealth gap that we see in this country is being driven by home ownership. So home ownership really impacts so many other aspects of what we see. And you think about that over generations, right? The ability to be able to pass down homes, to build up equity and have that wealth passed down from generation to generation. You could start to envision how these gaps persist particularly when we talk about housing, because there's a long history of racial discrimination and segregation within housing that has created a lot of problems, particularly for Black communities, for communities of color. You really see how homeownership, how housing, and how folks being shut out of that, still today, we see that reflected in a lot of the racial inequities in our society.
Well, Zeninjor, we done bummed everybody out. Let's talk some solutions.
Yes, let's do it.
Fellow WBUR business reporter Yasmin Amer was on the show to talk about factory-made housing.
So I want you to imagine, Daryl, these big rectangular boxes. Each one of those is an apartment. And so like it just comes with its like walls and frames and bathroom and kitchen. And it's put on a truck. It literally looks like a giant Lego, and the crane takes it up and then just stacks them on top of each other.
I'm thinking about some of the furniture I see online.
It is kind of IKEA-ish. I'm not going to lie.
Do you see this as being helpful to this situation?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly think, Yasmin's reporting on that. I think it's so fascinating. I think for me, what I was most interested to sort of see with that story or with this idea of factory-made housing is how it might assist in housing affordability. On the one hand, there's sort of this idea that factory-made housing can help create more housing more quickly, which, as we've talked about, that's what we need. More homes need to be built. And it sounds like, factory-made housing could potentially be a solution to help with that. But I also wonder about whether it could help with affordability as well. Because the other thing is we need not just more housing, but a mix of housing. So not just single-family homes. And that kind of gets into zoning issues, that's a big area within housing that, a lot of people have a lot of feelings and thoughts about. But there seems to be this push by, many advocates to change zoning laws so that we're not just seeing places zoned for single family homes, but for a mix of housing. Because the thing is, we don't just need neighborhoods where it's one type of housing or everything is luxury, everything's expensive.
Right.
There are different needs for different populations. And so I am curious to see if that's something that, may come about with factory-made housing or perhaps other solutions. But I think more housing and more variety of housing to really accommodate all of the different types of people who need housing, whether it's at different income levels, different family structures, not just homes that, accommodate just a single family.
Man, Zeninjor, this is one of those shows where I could go on and on and on. But I got to say, thank you so very much. Here on The Common, we love to talk about housing, and it's such an important issue in the state. So thank you so much for your reporting and taking the time to talk to us.
Yeah, you're welcome. It's a big issue, so I'm happy to chat about it and dig into a few things within this hugely complex topic.
That's WBUR senior business reporter Zeninjor Enwemeka. And that's our show for today. Thank you so much for listening to The Common. How does this make you feel? How do these home prices make you feel? What are you thinking? Do you want to buy a home? Do you want to rent? Do you want to leave the city? Tell us. Hit us up on Instagram at WBUR The Common. You can also send us an email at thecommon@wbur.org. And with that, I'm Daryl C. Murphy, and I'll talk to you tomorrow.